Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is on Chapter 151. Chapter 151. During the entr'acte, a whiff of cold air came into Helene's box. The door opened, and Anatoly entered, stooping and trying not to brush against anyone. "Let me introduce my brother to you," said Helene, her eyes shifting uneasily from Natasha to Anatoly. Natasha turned her pretty little head toward the elegant young officer and smiled at him over her bare shoulder. Anatoly, who was as handsome at close quarters as at a distance, sat down beside her and told her he had long wished to have this happiness, ever since the Narishkin's ball, in fact, at which he had had the well-remembered pleasure of seeing her. Kuragin was much more sensible and simple with women than among men. He talked boldly and naturally, and Natasha was strangely and agreeably struck by the fact that there was nothing formidable in this man about whom there was so much talk, but that on the contrary, his smile was most naive, cheerful, and good-natured. Kuragin asked her opinion of the performance, and told her how at previous performance Semenova had fallen down on the stage. "And do you know, Countess," he said, suddenly addressing her as an old familiar acquaintance, "we are getting up a costume tournament. You ought to take part in it. It will be great fun. We shall all meet at the Kuragins'. Please come. No, really, huh?" said he. While saying this, he never removed his smiling eyes from her face, her neck, and her bare arms. Natasha knew for certain that he was enraptured by her. This pleased her, yet his presence made her feel constrained and oppressed. When she was not looking at him, she felt that he was looking at her shoulder, and she involuntarily caught his eye so that he should look into hers rather than this. But looking into his eyes, she was frightened, realizing that there was not that barrier of modesty she had always felt between herself and other men. She did not know how it was that within 5 minutes she had come to feel herself terribly near to this man. When she turned away, she feared he might seize her from behind, by her bare arm, and kiss her on the neck. They spoke of most ordinary things, yet she felt that they were closer to one another than she had ever been to any man. Natasha kept turning to Helene and to her father, as if asking what it all meant. But Helene was engaged in conversation with the general and did not answer her look. And her father's eyes said nothing but what they always said. "Having a good time? Well, I'm glad of it." During one of these moments of awkward silence, when Anatoly's prominent eyes were gazing calmly and fixedly at her, Natasha, to break the silence, asked him how he liked Moscow. She asked the question and blushed. She felt all the time that by talking to him she was doing something improper. Anatoly smiled as though to encourage her. "At first I did not like it much, because what makes a town so pleasant, ce sont les jolies femmes, isn't that so? But now I like it very much indeed," he said, looking at her significantly. "You'll come to the costume tournament, Countess? Do come." And putting out his hand to her bouquet, and dropping his voice, he added, "You will be the prettiest there. Do come, dear Countess, and give me this flower as a pledge." Natasha did not understand what he was saying any more than he himself did, but she felt that his incomprehensible words had an improper intention. She did not know what to say, and turned away as if she had not heard his remark. But as soon as she had turned away, she felt that he was there, behind, so close behind her. How was he now? Confused? Angry? Ought I to put it right? She asked herself, and she could not refrain from turning around. She looked straight into his eyes, and his nearness, self-assurance, and the good-natured tenderness of his smile vanquished her. She smiled just as he was doing, gazing straight into his eyes, and again she felt with horror that no barrier lay between him and her. The curtain rose again. Anatoly left the box, serene and gay. Natasha went back to her father in the other box, now quite submissive to the world she found herself in. All that was going on before her now seemed quite natural, and on the other hand, all her previous thoughts of her betrothed, of Princess Mary, or of life in the country, did not once recur to her mind, and were as if belonging to a remote past. In the fourth act there was some sort of devil who sang waving his arm about, till the boards were withdrawn from under him, and he disappeared down below. That was the only part of the fourth act that Natasha saw. She felt agitated and tormented, and the cause of this was Kuragin, whom she could not help watching. As they were leaving the theater, Anatoly came up to them, called their carriage, and helped them in. As he was putting Natasha in, he pressed her arm above the elbow. Agitated and flushed, she turned around. He was looking at her with glittering eyes, smiling tenderly. Only after she had reached home was Natasha able clearly to think over what had happened to her, and suddenly remembering Prince Andrew, she was horrified. And at tea, to which all had sat down after the opera, she gave a loud exclamation, flushed, and ran out of the room. "Oh God, I am lost," she said to herself. "How could I let him?" She sat for a long time, hiding her flushed face in her hands, trying to realize what had happened to her, but was unable either to understand what had happened or what she felt. Everything seemed dark, obscure, and terrible. There in that enormous illuminated theater, where the bare-legged Duport, in his tinsel-decorated jacket, jumped about to the music on wet boards, and the young girls and old men and the nearly naked Helene with her proud, calm smile rapturously cried, "Bravo!" There in the presence of that, Helene, it had all seemed clear and simple. But now, alone by herself, it was incomprehensible. What is it? What was that terror I felt of him? What is this gnawing of conscience I am feeling now? She thought. Only to the old countess at night in bed could Natasha have told all that she was feeling. She knew that Sonia, with her severe and simple views, would either not understand it at all, or would be horrified at such a confession. So Natasha tried to solve what was tormenting her by herself. Am I spoiled for Andrew's love or not? She asked herself, and with soothing irony replied, What a fool I am to ask that. What did happen to me? Nothing. I've done nothing. I didn't lead him on at all. Nobody will know, and I shall never see him again, she told herself. So it is plain that nothing has happened, and there is nothing to repent of, and Andrew can love me still. But why still? Oh God, why isn't he here? Natasha quieted herself for a moment, but again some instinct told her that though all this was true, and though nothing had happened, yet the former purity of her love for Andrew had perished. And again, in imagination, she went over her whole conversation with Kuragin, and again saw the face, gestures, and tender smile of that bold, handsome man when he pressed her arm. All right, that concludes my reading of chapter 151. I hope you enjoyed it. I will now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 151. Do Not Swear by Natasha's Moon. Juliet meets Romeo, and within 4 days, Romeo murders his cousin, marries her, kills himself, and sets the table for her eventual suicide. Similarly, Natasha meets Anatoly Kuragin, and within the span of 4 acts of an opera, she falls in love with him, and thereby sets into motion a fairly disastrous course of events, though one not quite as drastic as everybody's favorite star-crossed lovers. Times of woe afford plenty of time to woo. Young wild love doesn't need much time. She did not know, Tolstoy writes of Natasha, how it was that within 5 minutes she had come to feel herself terribly near to this man. Within that tiny sliver of time, Anatoly vanquishes her, seemingly erasing any memory of Prince Andrew. How does Anatoly do it? Well, to borrow from another of the bard's brain children, the Prince of Darkness is a gentleman. Anatoly enters Natasha's life dressed in his finest military uniform. He's sophisticated, confident, and bold. It doesn't hurt that he's also a good flirt. His magic works. Before the opera is finished, Natasha is completely his. She thinks to herself that she has never felt this close to another man. She cannot help but look at him, inviting the return of his own gaze. It's only later, distanced from this encounter, that she is able to reflect upon what has happened. She despairs. She's confused and angry. She doesn't know what to do, nor who to talk to about it. Sonia won't do. She wouldn't understand. Only her mother, Natasha thinks, could help her through this crisis. Too bad her mother isn't in Moscow. That needn't matter. As A Year of War and Peace has suggested before, it's often beneficial to hold the image of a helpful person in your mind to help guide you through life. The old countess may not be there in person, but Natasha carries her along in her heart. She'd do well to ask her mother for help in this situation. Daily meditation. We need to set our affections on some good man and keep him constantly before our eyes, so that we may live as if he were watching us and do everything as if he saw what we were doing. Seneca, Letters from a Stoic. All right, that concludes my reading of and reflection on chapter 151. I hope you liked it. Thanks so much for joining me. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation to PayPal. The links to all that are down below in the show notes. Tomorrow, we're going to be reading and reflecting on chapter 152 of War and Peace. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.